Hey, what's up, everybody? Want to do a quick reflection video on the last 2 years of being one of the owners of Crawley Town, as well as kind of do a here's where we are today and here's what the future looks like. A majority of this video will be focused on what those first 2 years were like. I'll share some stories that are kind of just, hey, this is what I thought it was getting into this. Here's some crazy things that happened along the way, some highs, some lows. Talk a little bit about the end of the season last year, and then kind of talk about the postseason. If you only want to hear about kind of my postseason and preseason thoughts and what I think the future of Crawley Town will look like, I'll leave a link to that timestamp in the description below. But yeah, this will kind of encompass everything from what's happened to where we're going. With that said, I also want to give a huge thank you to everybody who makes Crawley Town possible. Obviously, I have nothing but love for this team. It will be my favorite football club till the day I die. And those who decide to partner with us and help everything run, I'll have my absolute gratitude. And I'm very thankful to have them along for the ride. Rent-A-Kill this year taking on the front of shirt sponsor. Excited to have them. The jerseys look amazing. Orrell producing those kits that absolutely, I love the Trident and the Devil in the Detail slogan that we have going right now. I can't wait to see a full stadium of those and see those on the pitch in real time this year in League One. And to our on the shirt sponsor, Brick Borrow. Glad to have them on for a second year. Great guys there at that company, doing very cool things and obviously building some incredible Lego construction items. I have to say this experience of Crawley Town really was one where I thought I knew what I was getting into. But it's one of those things where once you are in the middle of it, you really start to get a sense for the craziness of a sports business, sports organization. And that's not to say I don't think I was unprepared, but this getting involved with Crawley Town, a lot of people ask why, why Crawley, why soccer, why football? And for me, it comes down to passion. It's a passion decision. It's an emotional decision. I played football since I could walk. I played it all the way up until I decided to focus on my career. And it's still to this day something I watch on TV. And obviously, even when I'm in Crawley or watching training, they have to kick me off the pitch because I want to, go and play. I love it. But it's been an incredible experience. And I think when I got that initial text message about buying Crawley Town, I just immediately said yes. The money was transferred, I think, in less than 24 hours. And obviously that transaction played out pretty quickly. And I think that we chose the right team, the right community, the right town, which is because we had a great slate to kind of work off of. We had an incredibly passionate fan base, dedicated fan base. It's been incredible to sit down in Reds before games and meet people who've been coming to Crawley games. I can think back all the way when they were in the National League, when they would switch sides at halftime, so they were always behind the goal. And it's a historic team. And I think that's a privilege that us as owners have understood. We don't want to be a negative mark on the history of Crawley Town. It means a lot. It represents a lot to the community members. And we have to take that seriously. And I think we have taken that seriously. So the first season definitely started off with nothing but excitement. I know we were off to a very strong start. I was kind of just in the most euphoric moment of my life. The first time I came to see the stadium, the atmosphere was absolutely vibrant. And I actually made my first trip over to see Crawley play, which was a flight that I took, my videographer at the time, Guy, and we picked up Wilson in Scotland. We flew into Scotland, into Polbeth, spent a couple of days going out in Scotland, which were pretty fun. Scotland was a crazy time. But we made the trip to Carlisle, which was it was insane because we lost our luggage in Germany, and we had is this whole like rush through the train stations. We almost missed the last train that would have gotten us to Carlisle on time. And in all of this craziness of getting to this game, the only thing that we could think about was just hearing the first whistle get blown, and then no matter what happened at that point, it would be worth it. But to roll up there, to go to, I think it was like the rugby, like the Polo Lounge or something like that. They had this, the pregame at, we got to meet fans there for the first time, experience it. I ended up just being like, guys, we're going to go to the stadium. But to go to that game and watch that game play out and unfortunately lose, kind of set things into like, oh, this is real. It's happening. Things are truly playing out. It kind of just started the momentum of like, wow, like I don't ever want to not be doing this. Crawley Town is like, it's part of me now. I do remember accidentally saying the word soccer at that game during halftime and having to pay for everybody's drinks, which I think I had said on a Twitter space before that if you hear me say the word soccer, I'll buy drinks for everybody. And I think that ended up kind of starting the meme that is, Hunter Orrell will certainly say the word soccer and you cannot let him get away with it, which I appreciate. And I've definitely gotten better at using the right terminology. At that time, obviously also a lot of excitement around that first game. The first game that we got to play in those Adidas kits with the Chromie Squiggle NFT. So one of the most iconic commercial brands, Adidas, working with us was a huge thing to kind of check off the box of us doing. One of the first professional teams in the world to put an NFT on the front of a jersey. And obviously one of the first professional teams to really associate with crypto and NFTs and Web3, a lot of unique ones there. And I think that also put a lot of skepticism on what we were doing. We were doing a lot of things out of the box. And so to really validate all these crazy things and random ideas that were being thrown around, success had to follow that. Otherwise, I think a lot of people thought there'd be nothing but failure. Kind of fast forward through that first season, for me, it was great. Watching that season up to when we played Fulham was fun. I think we were doing well. I think that we were still kind of getting our wits about us and understanding what it was like to run a football club. Fulham game was, again, a standout moment on the positive side. I had flown in to watch that game, and I just remember sitting down with Coinbase was there to shoot a commercial and really understanding as there was like a film crew of like 20 people around me, giving instructions and asking for things and then realizing like ESPN was there, New York Times was there. And that's a whole nother story of them writing a terrible article about what we were doing. But I just realized like this was probably one of the biggest games that was ever going to be played at Crawley Town. And the emotions, the days leading up to that were like all positive. And the second we got on the train, I think we were staying at Elephant and Castle at the time. The second we got on the train, I was like a nervous wreck. I didn't say a word. I had been like hyper the days before, didn't say a whole word the ride down, and was just like a nervous mess. To watch that first goal in though, I think the entire stadium had like the greatest sigh of relief to watch that go in. And then that second goal to go in, I think James Balghese scored that one. What a time. And I think that also established like, hey, there's something going on here at Crawley Town. Obviously, Fulham wasn't putting out their, absolute best team. I think they held some of their starters off for that game, but it was nonetheless, what an upset, what a game, what a reaction from the fans. And then obviously kind of the negative side of that. And some people know this story a little bit more in detail than I'll tell here, just because. But running on the pitch, getting the EFL upset, making Barstool, making ESPN for running on the pitch. I think that was also a big like, hey, this is not America. This is not how American sports are going to be treated. I know we had the pitch invasion injuries that had happened the seasons before, and the EFL was really cracking down. But what the images and photos from that are some that I'll never forget, and certainly will stay with me till the day I die. But yeah, so that was an incredible moment. And then, in that first season, right after it, for us to kind of go into like where the controversy started. Obviously, losing doesn't do any team good. We were starting to struggle. I think people were getting upset with the way we were playing out of the back, and it's not aggressive. I would even joke like it was that Southgate almost like don't go forward, keep in the back, go backwards if you couldn't go forwards. And we weren't finding success. And in the middle of all this, deciding to do, again, another very controversial and out-of-the-box strategy for marketing was partnering with the Sidemen charity football match that was happening. So when that idea had been floated out, I don't think that there was anybody over in England at the time. Jacob Martin and I both flew over. Jacob Martin ended up going to the game, and I ended up going to Doncaster, wanting to go watch, obviously, Crawley Town play instead of the Sidemen match. And maybe this is also worth adding. I think in the last 2 years of the 3 dozen, probably good into 40 games at this point, I've sat at probably 90% of those games I've been in the away section. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One, the atmosphere is so much better than sitting in hospitality or in the owner's suite. But I also don't consider myself I'm just somebody who has more capital on the line. At the end of the day, I'm a supporter of the team. I don't view myself any different than anybody else in the crowd. I don't think I'm better. I don't think I should deserve special privileges or special treatment. I just see myself as a fan of Crawley Town. That's what I am. So it feels right to sit with the crowd, whether or not those interactions are positive or negative. I understand that people have those opinions and they want them to be heard, and you can be frustrated. Doncaster was certainly possibly the worst day I've ever had, though, sitting in the stands, to the point where I was actually asked by stewards to leave the stands, which, again, I understand. If there's an issue and people are upset, then can't be there, and it's not safe for me, it's not safe for the stewards, I'll leave. But to be in Doncaster, to be losing that game, I don't even remember what the score was, but we went down bad. We played not so great either. And for all this news to be one of the most viral news stories in England at the time of us going to the Sidemen charity event to scout the players and possibly do a collab, really just collided into the ultimate powder keg event. It was not seen well. Sitting in the stands, fans were screaming and upset. They wanted manager changes, they wanted player changes, and they were like, "You're spending time going to YouTuber football matches when you should be focused on the team." I think now that I have a chance to have an open forum about that, I think there's no way that had any impact on how the team was performing. I think it was a great marketing move. I think it got us lots of PR. And that's, at the end of the day, you want the team to be relevant throughout the world. And I've always said Crawley Town is a football team, but not more importantly, but more than other teams would say, we put importance on having content, having awareness across the board, especially as we look for ways to be a more diversified business. A lot of football teams don't really care about their P&L and their profit and loss. We do care about that. We do care about being able to run a tight ship and have the losses and profits balance out. Part of that is, can you sell merchandise? Can you get more people to attend games? Can you get more people to care? And I think the approach that we took with the Simon, while at the very, very extreme end of that, had the right intentions of getting more people to care about the team. So yeah, Doncaster was an absolute shit show. I still think that was like one of the like lowest points of my life. I remember sitting at the train station afterwards and like hiding from people because I didn't want anybody to see me. And I like hid on one of the train cars, like put my hood up. And of course, I forget who it was, but one of the supporters walked by, noticed me, basically was like, hey, like, I hate you, but would you like to have a beer with me? And I ended up drinking the whole train ride back. And I think attitudes by the end of that train ride kind of like had subsided, and there's nothing a beer can't fix between people. But yeah, that was a terrible point. And then obviously things started to spill over into the rest of the season as we get into a relegation battle. WAGMI out became an incredible chant, and then a lot of people were just done with having us as owners. And yeah, that was a really hard thing to see. And in the middle of all of this, beginning of 2023, having to deal with some personal issues that kept me from traveling, having to deal with moving across the country because of some of those reasons, not being able to go back over there and watch these games from either LA or from Maryland, made me feel like I was becoming more distance from the team, and didn't like that. It felt like everything was just kind of like unraveling in front of my eyes. And, Preston and the back office and, and hats off to Scott Lindsay, obviously, for getting us through the end of that season. But there are so many like things I like just emotionally like that were running through my head of like, how is this going to play out? Are we even going to be, the fans even going to want us here next season? Obviously the answer was no. At the end of the first season, to basically squeak by a hair, it felt like everything had gone wrong that possibly could go wrong. Emotions were pretty low. Me, somebody who considered myself like one of the most like, I didn't miss a single game. Like I watched every single game. There's nothing I enjoyed more than listening to Gary's voice as I drank some coffee in the morning. But yeah, like it was really hard point. I think coming out of that first season, the number one thing on everybody's mind was, how do we win next season? How do we not have the same issue? And so we approached the second season a little bit differently. And I think timing has been a big issue that not a lot of fans will appreciate, but having an idea of like what we want to do and getting that into getting it moving and working with the time allocations that we have, that probably in the second season is what hurt us the most in the first 6 months. Having the right recruiting model and identification system to figure out who we're signing, and how that adjusts our strategy wasn't really ready. And we really couldn't make the moves we wanted to make until that January window. And obviously that January window allowed us to have some additional signings that were game changers and take what people thought was another relegation battle brewing into one of the craziest turnaround stories that and again, it's different for me to be like at the front line watching all this happen, listening and reading every comment, reading DMs. But, in January, people said that, hey, congrats, another relegation battle coming. You've screwed up a second season. Get the hell out of our club. And then for 4 months later, for us to be talking about, oh my God, like there's possible, playoffs coming. It was incredible. And we had some incredible games leading up to that. Don't get me wrong. Like the second season was incredible to watch. I know my favorite game leading up to the playoffs was the Grimsby game. We had gone out in Baltimore the night before. People were visiting. I had a friend who put in a bet on Crawley Town at one point, and didn't tell any of us until the next morning. And didn't tell anybody of us until the second goal went in when we went down 2-0 before halftime. And I just remember like sitting there and being like, oh my God, like we can't win a game. Like this is another L. And to have that, I think it was like a 96 minutes, 6 minutes of overtime, have that goal go in. There's a video of it out there somewhere of us like absolutely all collectively losing our minds. And that like, I think for the second season established this like, hey, you play until the final whistle's blown. You play with your heart out. You play aggressive. You find ways to get balls in the box. You just play. Like you play like you're representing the town of Crawley. And so I think that was a dramatic difference between the first season and the second season. And then obviously, as I was saying, playoffs for the second season were pretty crazy. I wasn't able to travel until I believe the Mansfield game, which I could only go over for, I think, 10 days was what I was allowed to be out of the country for. I ended up missing a flight because of a delayed flight to get to Mansfield. So we had to move all our flights, move all the hotels around. We were able to make it out to Manchester to see. We ended up, instead of going to Mansfield, we missed the Mansfield game. Ended up going to see Chelsea versus Sheffield, which was I don't know. Of course, that was a terrible, boring game. And then went to Wrexham, which to be back for the first game in a while was nerve-wracking. I didn't know what to expect. I personally was waiting for people to just give me absolute shit, which, again, not being around and not being present, and then coming back for what I would consider like a PR game because it's Wrexham and they've got, they're popular in the US and everybody knows about them. I was nervous even to go to that game. It was a shit show through and through. I couldn't even get into the stadium. They like lost my tickets and it ended up being fine, but I enjoyed that game because everybody was pretty rowdy. We opened up a bar tab at the stadium and got everybody drinks and had a great time. And even though we lost, it was one of those games where like we lost, but everybody was like, hey, like we got to win some. We're feeling good. The playoffs are in sight. We got to make it happen. And then to go, I think, who did we play after that? Went to the home game after that, extended trip, another day, being stubborn. And I think we ended up tying that game. Just couldn't see a W. Which was very frustrating on that trip. And so I headed out back to the US and ultimately ended up having to watch the rest of the games from home. Wasn't able to get out of the US for any of those games, but to win that last game that got us into the playoffs, I've never had more stress. I don't think I sat for an entire second of that game. I paced my living room here for every single minute of that game. I was screaming, throwing stuff. But I'm upset that I couldn't be there to witness everybody on the pitch and chanting and excited and historic moment, obviously, for Crawley Town. And then the fun really began. I'm just kind of, hopefully I didn't miss anything here. The fun really began, though, when that happened. And I had a lot of friends here back in Baltimore who became like very large supporters. So when I came back over for the last month of games for the playoffs, it was nice to know for like the first time. I didn't feel like I was the only one kind of like cheering, like, obviously Crawley supporters that are local were all cheering, but I felt like there was an entire community at that point that were really tuned in to watching what was happening with this, team that everybody had said was going to fail and get relegated as they made it to the playoffs. The first playoff game, hopefully this is interesting to people. I'm just kind of like reflecting on it, like the craziness of it. The first game that we had at Crawley got rained out, which is like, it felt like all this tension had been built up. And to have that game get delayed felt like this ominous cloud was like over us where nothing could go straight to the point. I basically just paced around the stadium watching Sky Sports take videos of a wet field and talk about drainage. And what people don't understand about that day was I've never seen more rain in my life. It's definitely not a drainage issue. The amount of money that's been poured in that pitch, there must have been half an inch or half a foot of rain that came down in like an hour. Streets were flooded. It wasn't just a pitch thing. It was incredible. But going into that evening, it was like, oh my God, like we're like all of this craziness has been thrown in, rituals, pregame routines had all been thrown off. And so it felt like almost like it was anybody's game at that point, no matter what the strength going into that first game was. And yeah, people know how that one played out. To get a very strong established lead of that first game. Oh my God, it felt like the weight of like 1,000,000 tons had just been lifted off my back. It just felt good to see all the work of the players and the staff and Scott Lindsay and the recruiting team playing out, getting the results that we deserved. It was just very authoritative, dominant football. And then obviously to go to that second game was, it was crazy. Like I felt like at that point, and I get it. People, you have your opinions on the ownership group. Like I felt at that point, like it would be less tense. But the tensions were like still high. Anything can happen. And you can never kind of like feel like you've made it till that final whistle's blown. We've seen that in the prior games where people have had insane aggregate leads and blown them. But that was an incredible game. The atmosphere in the away section was crazy. And to be sat all the way up in the top in the nosebleeds, terrible seats, and absolutely just mop the Dons, make them look like the franchise club that they are. It felt amazing. And I just like at that point I was like, no matter what happens at this point, like this season's a positive. It feels good. But obviously being a competitive person and wanting to win it all and get promoted, then kind of became the like, we're going to Wembley. Like, and that for me, having gone to Wembley once before, not even for a football match, for an American football match, the year prior while we were over with some of the guys from Vayner Sports, that was like this whole like, oh my God, like that stadium's insane. Like that's like a 90,000 person stadium. There's no way that we're about to go play there. Like the team that has had, attendances of like 3,000 to 4,000 for games is about to go play in a 90,000 person stadium. And then to see, I think we had 33,000 people show up, maybe even more than, I can't remember the exact number, but to see and hear that atmosphere and see the passion and see all these people that had never even been to a Crawley Town game, but were from Crawley and wanted to come support, that was a phenomenal experience to witness. I have no words really for reflecting on that day. It was just good. I felt like it was nice to see all my friends show up that were local to the UK. And it was nice to run into fans and to see everybody excited. And even when it was still tied, like people were in good spirits, and when they had shots on goal, and it was a tense game, obviously running out to those last few minutes. But that was an emotional game at the end for sure. Had to fight back some tears there. And just happy to see, players who, God, if you had asked them a year ago if they thought they'd be playing at the Wembley Championship, I don't think that was a reality for them. And it certainly wasn't one for anybody, internally. Like it was just something that we were fighting for. It was the ultimate goal, but you don't expect it to happen. You just show up every day and do what you can do and make the decisions that you can best make to get there. But yeah, incredible experience. And that kind of takes us to where we are today. Like, and obviously the celebrations from winning were incredibly emotional and fun as well. and I enjoy like having that relationship with the players where I feel like, I'm not making signing decisions. I'm the one, I'm not there to do that. I'm there to be more of a friend to the players. And again, this is more of I consider myself just a supporter that has ownership in the club. And I think that's the healthiest way to approach my kind of emotions against how the team is doing and what I expect and what I want to see them do. Obviously, then leads us into the postseason. And barring me not missing any points that I wanted to talk about there, I do have to say, like, as I came over for the playoffs, I got to spend a lot of time one-on-one with players, a lot of time one-on-one with staff, because I was over for a full month straight, and basically every day was just at the stadium or hanging with the team at the hotel. Scott Lindsay, just to break this off as an individual, is one of the best human beings I've ever met. He takes his job so seriously. He has an incredible affinity for people. And I think to sum it up, the first time I met him in person, instead of, wanting to chit chat or ask me about the weather, the man literally pulled on his laptop and showed me film for 30 minutes straight and showed me, the pros and cons of making decisions, player options, channels that players could have been running through, things that he had worked on in training that he was seeing translate into the game. And that's all we talked about. We just talked football. And you could just tell immediately that is where he cared, and that's the only thing that was on his mind. And I think that translated into results. But to see how also he treats the staff and how he treats just every situation I saw him in, he is a incredible asset to the club. We're incredibly lucky to have him. And yeah, I'm just glad that he's associated with Crawley Town. He embodies what Crawley Town, at least what I want Crawley Town to stand for. And I think he brought out the best in the players that we had for the second season for sure. So also, I guess wrapping into like those players and the team that we had, the hardest part of owning the club for me has been saying bye to players at the end of seasons or having loans get retracted. But it is unfortunately a part of owning an athletic organization. It's not a business where, the fiscal year ends and you just go on to the next one and, there's a new hire and somebody leaves because they're having a baby. Like it is part of the game. People get offers for more money and they need to make the decisions that either most financially reward them or most, career-wise give them the most opportunity to be in the best position they're going to be in. And obviously the club needs to make the best decisions for themselves, whether that is salary balancing, figuring out what players added the most to the team, what their competitive skill difference is between other players that are in the transfer, looking for transfer and what their salaries might be. It's a complicated dance, especially, I think the outsider, it's, hey, just sign the players that we had last year. They did well. But when you start looking at, the actual dollars and when you look at guarantees and you start looking at contracts that could be unique, and then you start looking at what they might be offered and how you as a club have to react to that, it puts you in a tricky situation. And obviously to most people, I would hope that this is not new news. This is, expected for how a football club would run. This season, obviously, we had to say goodbye to some of our best players from last season, and some of the people that I consider incredibly close friends. And not to pick favorites here because I love them all and you're all family to me. And that anybody who, no matter whether we cut you or you left or however it plays out, but like if you've given time to Crawley Town, I consider you family. You're somebody that you call me and you need a favor or you need advice, you need whatever you need. I consider myself like there for you, to be a resource. It's not something that ends after you're not wearing the Crawley Town jersey. Goodbye. My door is always open, as an individual hunter. But yeah, incredibly hard to see people that, would brighten up my day, to see them at training, who I talk to, put video games with, had that sort of relationship of players this year. And I think those decisions, while, some are hard to swallow, I think are decisions that were made for the best outcome of the club. I think that we're positioned in a way where we need to be competitive this season to stay up. It's not a give me to, hey, like we're just going to sign some players and we'll finish, middle of the table and then we can rebuild from there. I think we've approached the season signing with how can we get the strongest squad, the best bang for our buck, and really put out a squad that surprises people. I would say the reactions from the beginning of the signing period and release period to where we are today they've cooled off. In the beginning, I think people, like, I can pull it up now. I've got easily 40, 50 DMs still that I haven't opened that are incredibly, they've got some teeth to them. And I get that. I read every DM usually. I think this is the first time in a while that I've just kind of let all the DMs subside because it was such a whiplash from after winning at Wembley. It was all these amazing DMs and people apologizing for previous comments and previous opinions to immediately go into, get the hell out of the UK and, go back to America and, you're an idiot. You don't to have that kind of reaction was a lot. I think though that the strategy that we're employing is the same one that we did in the second season, which is look for opportunity, figure out ways to put out a competitive team, get players that other teams might have overlooked. How do we get players on the pitch that not only complement each other, but raise each other's skill levels and offer a dynamic playing style that many teams would never have expected, a duo or a trio to put together. And I think Scott Lindsay has proven that he has the skill base, he has the knowledge on how to take players that many have overlooked and turn them into superstars, and to make a team really perform at its highest level possible. Now, we've obviously had 3 preseason games at this point, won the first 2, and we just lost the second, which is unfortunate. My opinions here are it's playing hours under the tank, right? Like you got to get there's a whole new dynamic on the field. People are still getting interested. There's that dynamic of playing trialists and trying to see who's got what it takes to be on the roster. And as we are slowly or quickly actually approaching the regular season, that has to get straightened out. And I think number one is figuring out putting the ball in the back of the net. That has to happen. I know a lot of these teams have been parking the bus. I've watched the highlights. I've watched the full game film. There's something to be said there for how those games are playing out. I don't think the score entirely reflects where we stand going into the beginning of the season. But I do think that has to be one of the biggest highlights going into this. We have to score, whether that means signing strikers or coming up with a more better strategy for getting the ball to strikers or attacking midfielders to score. That has to be figured out. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of losses and ties on the scorecard this season. And that's not going to keep us up. That's not going to keep us competitive. And it's not going to be fun football to watch. And at the end of the day, I've said this previously in the video, it has to be competitive, entertaining football for us to have a chance. And that's kind of the baseline for attracting people to be fans of the team, to come watch the team, to buy, beer, kits, merchandise, whatever it might be. You have to be performing well. I think going forward also, this coming Saturday, we play Crystal Palace. That'll be a very strong indication of how I think the beginning of the season will play out. Now, obviously, a large loss there just means that, you're playing a Premier League team who's almost in, preseason peak form. I'm expecting them to put out a pretty strong team. And I'm hoping that we can put up a very competitive counter to that and keep it a competitive game and possibly win. that also means that a lot of things have to be sorted out going into that game. But I have confidence. I know this might sound like I'm saying like, hey, like things are going to be, up in the air, but I think it's like that every season for every team. You don't know where you are until you're, 5-10 games into the real season playing your real opponents. But I do have faith in our recruitment team. I have faith in Lindsay. I have faith in our back office staff, our training staff, everybody that makes, again, the wheels on Crawley spin. I have faith that we can put out an incredibly strong team this year and hopefully shut up a lot of the people that are talking hate and being doubters. I have nothing but faith in our chairman this year. I have nothing but faith in Scott Lindsay. I'm just excited. And I'm excited for Crawley football to be back, for being able to watch it every Saturday and Tuesday. And I hope you guys are as well. This is really just a long, hopefully, I know it's all mostly like a recap, but for me, it's a good kind of moment to like sit and stop and say, thank you to everybody. And let you know that while you guys might not think I'm listening or watching or understanding the severity of events, I do. And I'm just glad that I'm a part of this, and I'm hoping that we can make you, for our third season, proud supporters, proud community members of Crawley Town, and I'm just excited to see what this next season has in store. So if you have questions, comments, leave them below, and obviously, as strong of an opinion as you might have, I'm okay reading that, but obviously try to keep it a little bit on the appropriate side. We've had some interesting takes lately. But I mean, yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add on that note. Hopefully everybody's doing well, enjoying the football that we had outside of Crawley. Unfortunately, England not winning. I know that we have the Olympics coming up here, so some more football to kind of get us through until the League One season starts. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you have anything, let me know. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.